Hey guys, you're here with MVI. I wanted to bring to you today, we got a customer that drove in from out of state that asked for some assistance on installing a backup camera on a Chevy Volt. Not sure what year this is, 13, 14, something like that. So I wanted to take this opportunity to give you a small overview of what's involved in our backup camera kits and installs. So I'll start with the camera itself. First and foremost, this is the camera kit that we send out. It is designed to hang upside down and flush mount just like the factory would. This is a really nice quality camera. Literally sold thousands of them, holds up real good. So the kit itself will look like this, along with an input into the radio system, which I'll discuss here in a minute. Typically we'll send some connectors that look like this to connect for power and ground. So the camera harness itself will need power, which I'll cover, and ground, which I'll cover. You can use these connectors to make those connections, and then of course the video signal itself. So I always get requests or questions on how to hook this part up. Pretty simple, guys. You got two male RCAs. Just plug one into the camera harness itself. The other one will only go into one spot. This is going to run to the front of the car, and you'll make the power up there, which I'll explain here in a moment. But that's how that hooks up, and then this is your video feed that'll plug into the radio with our supplied harness. So with all that said, depending on the car that you have, you got to find a spot where the camera will go. This part is up to you. On this car here, we're going to mount it right here where it would be from factory. On other cars, you may decide to come up into the hatch. So that's all got to be taken into consideration as part of the install as to what's going to need to be torn down. So the process is get it mounted back here, route the harness to the front, power it up, ground it, and plug it in. You should be good to go. So on this particular car, we've got some paneling under here that I've got to get off, which I'll do here in a second. And then we're going to take these this little license light out of the way so we can help feed the wire through this cavity. And then we'll end up coming inside the car once I have this panel here off. This will come off. We're going to route the camera harness towards the front of the car. Typically you want to pull panels, so that's what we're going to be doing here in a second. I will come back. I'm not going to show you the process of removing all this stuff, but I am going to come back with a second video showing you what was taken apart, how we ran it, etc. So I'll show you all that here in a second, but harness up through here. And it's got to get to the front of the car, guys, so there's really no easy way about it. Again, process is the same on every vehicle, just different panels you take apart. So this sill panel is going to come out. So I can route the harness and continue forward up to the front, and depending on the vehicle, that's where our notes will come in. You'll be making your power and ground connections up here, typically at the BCM, which on pretty much all cars, some of the Cadillacs sit on the right side, but most cars on the GM are going to sit over here to the left. So we're going to get some paneling off here so we can access the module to make those connections. And then also part of the install is programming. So you'll see when I go to start this thing up. So these newer cars, guys, when you go to reverse, obviously you get no screen there, it doesn't switch. In the old days you could just apply power and get that to switch over, but that's not the case these days. So programming is required of the radio module, which sits behind this panel. So I'll get all that off, out of the way, and we're going to access the radio module that sits behind here. That's what's going to get programmed. So when we do go to reverse, that screen will switch. I'll show you that. That's also where we're going to input for the video feed. So I'm going to go ahead and get going on this install, tearing things apart, get things ran. All right, guys, we're back, and I've got the camera mounted. So I'm going to give you a quick little shot of that. So we're centered back here, mounted just like factory. Plate will go back over. We did come through here, and if you come in the vehicle through the underside, we were able to come in and we found a nice little access hole right here. So we came right through that little grommet, put that back in place, and as usual, I've got things zip tied. So we're basically just following this harness. You could probably get away without taking this panel out on this car if you wanted to, but as usual, I like to get things out of my way, so I'm nice and secured along this factory harness coming up here. And what I'd like to point out here, guys, is, so I'll come back and clip all this off, but this is the junction where it comes together. I see a lot of guys do this install and jump in and get done without testing it, which is not what you want to do. You always want to test it before you put things back together. But what happens is this gets tugged while running it. So while you're running the wire, never pull and get forceful. Things should go through nice and easy. Otherwise, you're just going to rip something and create a headache for yourself. So make sure that's in nice and solid. And then before I put this back together, I'm going to tape this. The other thing I'm going to point out here is these wires. Now, typically, we tape this up to where you don't have to see them. And if you're doing a particular install where they come into play, I will make the connections for you. But these have two little labels that got ripped off during the install. Typically, you're not going to worry about these at all. You'll hardly ever worry about the white wires. Every once in a while, I may have you concerned about the green. But those are for parking lines, guys. So if the car's already got built-in parking lines and we miss it, these greens would have to be put together. Otherwise, you just leave these things alone. Just ignore them, tape them up, which I'm going to do nice and neat, and get this thing tucked back. And you'll notice I've got this in an area where I can access it if I need to where I don't have to tear things completely apart. So with that said, all I did was follow down and around. Let's get the angle here. Followed the harness all the way up front. Again through here. Came up through that guy and in through the dash. You like to pay attention to if this dash ever has to come out, you can do so. And I've got the wire run up into the radio cavity here. You will notice I've got tape around my RCA and my power connection here. That's for two things, so nothing ever comes loose, but also so it doesn't, rub and hit metal. And then I'll go ahead and let you take back control of this. Up here, I've got it routed into the back of the cavity. So what I'm going to point out here, guys, is this factory radio does not have a camera input. We created one. Nice little RCA. So you guys choose to get your own camera off of eBay or Amazon. You can if you want. I don't recommend buying something super cheap because you're just going to be replacing it down the road. But our camera kit will come with this input. If you get your own camera, we can sell you this input. They run 60 bucks, but it allows you just to plug in to the back of the radio. That's the first thing to note. Gives us our input right there. And then you'll need to power and ground. Now, what I just discovered on these on this Volt, we've got key on power coming to the screen here. So any use, let's say 2010 to 2016, 17 guys with this style radio can use this. Instead of going to the BCM, the back of the radio should have a wire in slot 43, which sits right next to this red power wire. So 43 is this green in this car. It's going to be different colors on different GM vehicles, but right next to the power is 43, and that's your remote power turn on. It turns on amplifiers and whatnot. So this may not always be in vehicles without the Bose audio. So in that case, we would need to go to the BCM, which does actually sit on the right side of this vehicle, guys, but I elected not to go there. This same wire travels up to the screen, and it gave me a nice little spot to pull power from. So I'm soldered to that right there. If you so choose, you could use those little T-taps that I showed you earlier to make that connection. But solder is always the best. So with all that said, this is ready to go back in. And you'll notice everything's plug and play. So if you have to go in for service, you could quickly disconnect that camera, let them work on your car like it was never there. Service always likes to say that since you've added something to the car, that's the problem, blah, blah, blah. So you'll notice I do things to where this can come out like it was never there, then let them fix the problem, then you could put it back. So another thing I'll say is we are working on other lines now, vehicle lines, so we're gonna have fitments for Toyota and whatnot. Just tape that up nice and neat. So if you've got a non-GM vehicle you wanna do, reach out to us on the site as usual. I'm gonna go ahead and just plug this up so I can show you the outcome. So we're gonna get our connectors plugged back in. Got this out for now. I'll put this back together and not show you all that, guys, but we'll go ahead and fire this thing up. Got some sun glare coming through. So we've got our, this thing likes to go through a little initialization. We'll let that go away so you can see we've got our home screen. Now I showed you earlier when you put it in reverse it didn't switch. I did the programming and now it does. So up here you can see the camera image. These are the parking lines that I've been talking about. So if you have a vehicle that's some 14s and 15s, these will be in there from the factory that'll turn. That's part of our programming. For sure 15s is when they added it in. Some 14s have it. I can't guarantee it on 14s, but these can go away by putting those green wires together that I showed you in the back. So just FYI on that. But now these can help you gauge. We got up to 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, etc. That's kind of the gauge of distance. GM on these systems, when you go from reverse to drive, this thing stays live. So if you had the camera powered to just reverse signal, your camera would go away right now and you would be looking at a black screen. So by on the GM vehicles, you always want your camera to accessory turn on and not reverse, and that's why. So if I were to go to drive right now, my camera's staying on because I'm powering it up still. If I were using a reverse signal, as soon as I go from reverse to drive, that goes away and you would then be looking at a black screen. So that's kind of the purpose for that. So that's it, guys. Wanted to show you a quick little overview here of what a camera install consists of. Again, so if you're doing a Volt, you've seen this install. If you're doing a different vehicle, it's the same process. Now you may have to run things to the right side of the vehicle like on Cadillacs, but regardless, it's the same process. You got to mount it at the back, route it to the front, wire things up, get it plugged in. Our programming and our input harnesses are what makes things possible, guys. And of course, we have this nice high quality camera at the same time as well. So as usual, we've got this stuff on the site. Reach out to us. Best way to reach us, I will have this video on YouTube as well. But the best way to reach us these days is the live chat. You can leave a message there after hours. We do get back to you the next day, typically each morning, Monday through Friday, from 9 to 11, 11:30ish, and then we try to stay up throughout the day. But there's a chat box there to leave your information and get in touch with us and chat right there. That's the absolute best way to reach us.